Dennis Harwig from AWS, and then I put a presentation together today. All right, so I put a presentation together to talk about operation and industry strategies. Now, I've never operated an ATF, but I do have a sales background. I worked in sales for about 5 years at EWI as their sales director. I got a quality management background. I was a VP of quality for a little while at Thermodyne. And so, I kind of understand the standards and what's behind it. And I do know procedure development and application development. So I kind of understand what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm going to try to pull some of my ideas together, what I've learned from people, but also the main objective of this conference, was to grab best practices. And I think you heard some great stuff from Renee about her strategies. And we got some of our top ATFs coming in later to provide more. So I'm hoping as the program moves through, we really start to identify some key themes on how to thrive as an ATF. And we're going to do a workshop tomorrow, which will give you an opportunity for you guys to raise some issues and maybe your ideas on things we could do to do better. So we've all heard what an ATF is, and you can train and certify welders to AWS structural codes, API 1104 code, ASME boiler and pressure vessel code. They have some different hooks as far as what you're allowed to do, but AWS allows for truly transferable certifications if you register your welder, depending on if the company has, companies have audited an ATF and accept ATS as an, accredited or not accredited, a qualified workforce supplier. The big value with ATFs to me as a school is that, how much, this was actually some findings and some reports on how to reduce workforce costs. All the money we spend training and qualifying and then requalifying and certifying personnel. So to me, if you really get tuned in with industry, there's a real quid pro quo with schools to train the right processes, the right technologies, and then certify people so they can be inserted right into the workforce. So I said it kind of goes from a 4-step process to a 2-step process. Now, from a quid pro quo perspective, you hear a lot of companies talk about, well, those qualifications, that's my IP. But I know schools have access to a lot of grants and other types of funding that might help companies save money on training and qualification. So there is a quid pro quo there of, I'm going to, maybe share some of my welding know-how. And as we move on to the presentation, you'll look at, we have a whole library of what we call standard welding procedure specifications. So a lot of times what people think is IP, I have a procedure for welding this or procedure welding that, is only being repeated by maybe 100 other people in the country at any one day. So there's a lot of the body of knowledge that's repeated over and over again. So the whole notion of standard welding procedures makes a lot of sense. So we're going to talk about that too. I'm going to take a step back, talk about AWS. I mean, AWS is actually thriving quite well right now, so we're making a lot of investments to try to improve our services to members. As you heard from David, we're making money in education services. We're trying to really integrate our programs. When I joined AWS, there was a lot of like stovepipes that people didn't understand where the relationships were between education, certification, and standards, and how they all, what's important to me, how do you package this? So we're trying to develop some toolkits. You'll hear about those. WeldEd's made a big impact. The high points to me with Duncan is that they've cataloged, there's like 230 community colleges out there to teach welding. And how do we get them all up to the same level so they're performing at the same level and thriving, and how many of those could maybe be an ATF to support industry if there's a need. The Sense program, we're going to make a lot of improvements over the next year in the system. Our IT system at AWS is a little old, but we recognize that, and we're making major investments right now in infrastructure and software technologies to provide better services. And again, as you know, this conference was really geared around how do we support ATF implementation in schools. So one of our problems is right now we have about, I think, 124 ATFs growing rapidly, but there is no common system. So one of the things that was apparent to me talking to people when they ask about ATFs is we give you a standard, and we tell you to read it, and Linda gives you a presentation, but you got to figure out how to put your own quality system together, and your own lab management system, welder management system, sales management system if you're going to sell services, how to price it, what's the cost models. To me, we should be providing more support on best practices, and my goal is to gather those best practices and maybe even form, a user group where we can really kind of come up with what people believe to be, the true best practices to share with people. And again, to me, the goal as an ATF is to become a certified workforce supplier. You know, in the ideal state, if a company came in to view your ATF, maybe you'd have some plaques on the wall for some Fortune 500 companies where you get your qualified, workforce supplier, shingle says that, hey, you're a qualified workforce supplier for GE or Vermeer or somebody like that. So again, our challenge is how do we build a better enterprise, set of services, provide more value to industry, create regional workforce clusters, and of course improve sustainability and profitability so the schools can buy more equipment and add more capabilities. And this is just a simple idea, or I guess an illustration how I think our credentialing framework fits together. We have standards, we have competencies, but the lowest level, I really believe that welding fundamentals and sense education is core to all our professional certifications. Whether you're a supervisor, an inspector, or a sales rep, you got to have good fundamentals. And then of course the ATF is a nice thing to stack on top, where you can get certified to industry code welding procedures. And again, the welding industry offers a lot of career pathways. And from an AWS perspective, we're trying to develop better e-learning and career services. And of course, you as an ATF can provide those accredited services people need to get those certifications. So if you're not familiar with all the different certifications AWS offers, I was going to review that with you so you know. So at the lowest level, skilled labor, we have our Sense Level 1 and Level 2, of course, certified welder. And to offer certified welder, you're an ATF. But then at the technician level, we have our certified robotic arc welding, and I guess I thought I put it on here. I must not have. But we also have a certified resistance welding technician coming out, and we're going to have another kind of generic platform for welding technicians probably within a year or two. To issue those certifications, you need to be at what we call an accredited test center. Then in the quality area, we have the certified radiographic interpreter, CRI. And of course, the certified welding inspector, the senior certified welding inspector. And then we have 2 new endorsements coming out probably within the next year for inspectors to be magnetic particle testing and penetrant testing. We have the certified welding supervisor, which is very popular. Big difference between a supervisor and inspector. They learn lean management and welding economics versus inspection technology, but that again builds on that fundamentals body of knowledge of process, metallurgy, symbols, NDE, fabrication math.
What does CWF stand for?
Certified Welding Supervisor.
No, CWF on the line above it, on the right.
Oh, sir. Okay. So one of our enterprise certified, we have a certified welding fabricator, and in the quality area, so that is for structural steel shops. And again, it's an enterprise certification that says you have a quality management system that's highly aligned with the requirements of like D11 for building structure. Now, we are also the authorized national body for company certification for ISO 3834. And this is a new certification that the Europeans developed really. Of course, it was done globally because it was ISO as a global community. But it's basically, it's the quality requirements for welding fabricators. And that quality system kind of addresses all the gaps in an ISO 9000 system. So ISO 9000 says, hey, welding processes are special processes, right? Thanks, Dave. And special processes mean I can't inspect quality. I can't just inspect a weld and say that's a good weld. I can say it's a sound weld, but I can't say it's a good weld. Does it have good properties? So welds are a special process. You have to demonstrate quality through doing procedures and destructive testing, then controlling those essential variables to be able to reproduce that procedure to ensure reproducible results. And then you do NDE to verify soundness. There's no cracks or flaws, right? So 3834 came up with a quality system that says here are all the quality system requirements you have to control for special processes for welding and some of its allied processes. It's been adopted in wide scale in Europe for the pressure, for structure, and for rail equipment. And over 5,000 companies now have 3834. So we'll be launching a accreditation service for company certification probably within the next year for 3834. We've done our beta case. We've been, we're now the authorized national body for 3834, and we'll start looking to launch those services in the future. In the engineering area, we're also developing a technologist, and we're overhauling our engineer program, Certified Welding Engineer. The sales rep program is very popular with the welding distributors. We have some of the big distributors like Matheson and others where their whole sales force is getting their CWSR. That program really is based on welding fundamentals with welding economics, so they really got to be able to do cost estimates and value analysis of process implementations. And then, of course, in the education area, we have the Certified Welding Educator, which is basically parts A and B of the CWI exam. It's fundamentals plus the inspection practical without having to do a code application of, test, exam. And then, of course, in education, we have the Sense certification. So when you talk about endorsements, though, one thing, our CWI is so strong. We have over 41,000 CWIs, and it's growing rapidly because the CWI is now being written in more and more, regulatory documents that, they don't even trust. You could self-qualify. Our welding standard for CWIs, B5.1, is it, for CWI? It allows for open qualification and that companies can qualify their own inspectors. But more and more people don't want self-qualified inspectors. They want third-party, registered and certified inspectors. Yes, yes.
What happened to
Oh, I'm sorry.
The street metal?
It should, well, maybe I missed it. But these are the endorsements I pulled right off the website. It exists, but there is an endorsement for it? Yeah, but is there an endorsement for that? You're pretty sure?
I have it.
Okay, then I missed it. I'm sorry. So she pointed out I'm missing D1.3 as an endorsement. My mistake. I thought I just pulled these right off the website. So, but these are all the endorsements the CWI can get. So CWI, when they take their exam, there's three parts. You got the part A is fundamentals. Part B is the inspection workshop where you get replicas and tools and a little standards booklet that has all the code-like criteria that you got to interpret and read all the footnotes. And then, of course, you have to do a code application exam, which is very focused on qualification and inspection criteria. And we provide code application type endorsements for all these different codes. And more regulatory bodies are saying if you're a CWI, you got to have the right code application endorsement to work on their project. And of course, if you accumulate enough of these, the way we're going with our senior CWI, we're probably going to be restructuring that where if you get so many of these endorsements, you'll be considered a senior CWI versus taking another exam. That's kind of the way they're going as they restructure the program. I don't need to read all these, I don't think. So now I'm going to kind of move into this strategies for an ATF to think about as you're looking to prepare your application or build your client, base and relationships. So again, first thing I would do, I would survey your industrial partners on which welding applications are in demand. It's always good to, we always called it when I worked in sales at EWI, we called it technology push and market pull, right? You want to know what the market needs and you're going to be pushing the technology to fill those solutions at the cross point. And recruit industry partners to participate on your industry advisory board. And again, seek balance. I think you should want to have some engineers on there, inspectors, managers, accountants, suppliers, AWS section reps, student reps. Try to get a good diversified cross-section. From a financial perspective, having a good accountant on there might help you with your accounting and pricing models, investment plans, From a welding lab perspective, align your equipment and materials to the needs, seek support on material purchases. We heard about Lincoln now going, pulling their prices back 30 years for you guys to save money. Wonderful, investment from their perspective. Maybe even consider leverage, volume buying of major partners. Maybe you can work with your big companies, say, hey, will you buy my steel for me? They're already getting volume buying discounts, so maybe they can help you. And again, evaluate distributor programs. The distributors go out of their way to work with schools because they realize that if you start using their brand, their students start using their brand, that brand loyalty might last a lifetime. So you'll be surprised what these distributors will do for you. So what might your survey questions be? How many welding performance qualifications do you perform annually and with what processes? Do you need qualified welders to meet or grow your current business and how many? And then what are the requirements of your applications, base material, welding process, electrode? And do you understand how to use SWPSs? You know, we have a library of 64 standard welding procedures for plate and pipe. You know, 30 are for sheet and plate, and 32 are for pipe for ASME, and then we have another 2 that's been added for the Navy, and the Navy's going to add a bunch more. So we're kind of now getting the Navy finally behind this notion of SWPSs. You know, why do people keep qualifying welding A36 to A36 using SMAW? It blows my mind, right? Because it's only been welded and qualified like 1,000, 5,000 times, who knows? But we're pretty confident you'll get a good weld if you use these, you know, standard welding parameters. And then what are your annual training and qualification costs? And maybe a breakdown per welder. And then you can help maybe figure out some models. Can I save you some money? Because a lot of people, you know, when they look at brick and mortar, I got a little training facility that I only use once a month. It's taking up real estate in my shop. I got to have testing equipment. You know, if that stuff's not being utilized 24/7, if they're not employing hundreds of welders, they need a partner. So for small to medium-sized enterprises, ATFs to me are a big resource. Or like refineries, like they're doing a major construction ramp up. They don't want to build a big training facility for a 2-year construction project and then have to tear the thing down. They're going to seek a partner like Calumet. And then are you aware of AWS's accredited test facility program and how it can reduce your training and qualification costs? So I'm sure you can add questions to the list, but that's a starting point. You heard about it earlier. We recommend that you maybe build a CWI Contractor Network. You know, a lot of the startups are only going to have one CWI, and he might be the trainer. So he's going to have a hard time also being the witness when you're doing your qualification exams. We do have some new requirements coming out with QC 47, where they're going to, a CWI, if he's going to be the qualifier, we're calling it, you're going to have that endorsement in the future. It's not there today, but this new system also allows that same person, though, to go out in the field and do qualifications, or allows you to use other CWIs that are out as qualifiers to send their materials to your ATF. So the new system is going to have some additional hooks, but it also is going to provide some additional opportunities for you to build a network that could feed you samples for testing. The main reason why we got this qualifier endorsement is that we get too many applications that are incomplete, that are not filled out correctly. We know our CWIs are smart, but they're not welding engineers, and a lot of them do not completely fill out the WPSs and the WPQ forms correctly. And so we're going to provide some training, and that's what that endorsement's about, to make sure we get better documentation. So we're going to build an ATF training program. We're part of the Pellissippi grant team, which we have Pellissippi representatives in the room. There they are back there. David, I don't know if you've seen them or not, but we're part of their TAC grant program to build an ATF training program that we're going to share freely with community colleges. And if you want the material, of course, we'll give it to you free. And if you want us to come and deliver it, then we'll just charge you for our costs to do that. And then we're taking that and a number of other things you heard about yesterday about, you know, our code of ethics and student bill of rights. And we're going to build a toolkit. And then really, obviously we want to try to share this whole idea of how to use SWPSs. So this is an eye chart, but again, you guys get a copy of this later. But, you know, from a toolkit perspective, this is our starting point. You know, we should provide some best practices for, you know, what are your processes for facility and QA requirements and, you know, auditing. And that's a lot was covered by Linda. But, you know, whatever we can, you know, put in a toolkit so you have right there. You're going to hear later about the new passport system for welder maintenance. So there is maintenance requirements, you know, and everybody does it a little bit different. You heard API requires requalification. AWS, you're certified for life as long as you're welding with that process. But it varies. You know, you have it right as an inspector, though, to challenge someone's welding ability. I was out at the Ironworkers local in Las Vegas when I did the District 21 conference with that district. And, you know, they have like 5,000 or local. But when they were building a big skyscraper in Vegas, they pull in welders from all over the country. And the guys, Ironworkers, 120,000, maybe 90,000 carry a certified welder card. You know, they use our system. Some of them will have up to 5 or 10 certifications. They won't make the guys requalify, but they will have them weld. When they show up from, you know, Washington or New York, depending on how hungry guys are, they'll post they need welders, and guys will come from all over. They'll mobilize to get in on the contract, and they'll have them weld. And if they look like they're welding good, they'll let them go. But the guy doesn't look like he's getting rusty, even though he says his maintenance is all up to speed. They'll have him requalify. So, as a CWI, that's kind of the code of ethics. You got to make sure if they're not producing, you got to challenge that guy to maybe requalify. Business policies, these are real important. We talked about, same with the SENSE program, of just really, how to, what is best practices from a code of ethics and certified welder rights and, investigative policies. If we believe there's fraud out there, we have the right to come in and audit your so we want to kind of tighten up the system a little bit, just so there's no funny business going on out there. And it really is going to protect the whole brand and the integrity of ATS for yourself. And then, best practices as far as, how do you run your ATF? Oops, wrong button. Testing equipment, objectives for your industry advisory board, like we talked about, quality management, welding documents, enterprise models, sales, collateral. Industrial services is an area you get a lot of questions about. How do I price these services? And you can do some Googling and figure out what other people are charging, but maybe, we can help you build some cost models that can factor in your overhead and things like that. We can share that with you in the future. And from a marketing perspective, AWS, we want to do more. We want to provide posters and really help market ATS better, and even, again, form user groups and networks and things like that in the future. So it's coming. So more on startup strategies, qualified workforce supplier. To me, that's what when you talk to people that are in manufacturing and they're looking at, hey, how do I use an ATF? I mean, the issue is from a quality system perspective, from a quality management perspective, you have suppliers, you got to qualify them. So you want them to come in and audit your system, right? And ideally, you want them to give you a shingle that you're a qualified workforce supplier. And it'd be nice if you had a half a dozen of those hanging on the wall when someone else comes in your facility and says, yeah, I've been audited by some big brand, this and this company, and we run a good quality system here. Develop a promotion plan. So, as I go around to community colleges, I hear some great success stories. Ferris State, 2-year waiting list. They take 50 kids a year, busting at the seams. They do things like they sponsor their own welding competition, and they talk about all the jobs their graduates get in their engineering technologists, 4-year engineering technologists. Get involved with local AWS sections. Bob Richwine was talking about how get connected with the students and promote welding, get more people in welding to fill the jobs and fill your schools. And again, seek AWS support, to help develop marketing collateral. We need to come up, we got a whole new brand strategy where we're going to have some generic collateral that could give you a toolkit to help you maybe design your own marketing materials. And again, like I already said, sponsor events, welding competitions, barbecues, host section meetings at your facility to create awareness that you're out here. So again, growth strategies, again, promote the image of welding, build a high school, career technical education network pipeline. Anything you can do to get linked in with these high schools that might not be an ATF, but you could be, if they want to get their certified welder card, they can use you. Establish student chapters. Again, I think, enlightening students of all the possibilities within the welding industry is a great thing to do, and it's going to obviously, get them excited about getting certified and telling other people about, the welding industry. Build welding engineering contract partners, excuse me. When I met with a few schools and even brought in some industrial partners, one of the things that small companies ask, they'll say, okay, so you can qualify my welders, but what if I need a procedure developed? And I need it qualified. I don't have a welding engineer. You're going to be able to help me here. If I'm not going to use this test lab I've been using, it's 100 miles away. You're down the street, but how do I make that happen? Well, to me, again, you'd build a network with welding engineers. There's a lot of good welding engineers within the Welding Society that do this, and so again, build a network of welding engineer partners if you get into situations where you're developing welding procedures, and it could be with partners through other ATFs that might know somebody that can help you out. Establish NDE capabilities, RT, PT, MT. That's the next thing that it's just natural if you're going to be a test lab to go into NDE is the next area. Offer additional AWS certifications. Again, if you got interested in robotics, you can become an accredited test center for robotic crawl, which is certified robotic arc welding technician or operator, and the new Right now they're beta testing. I think it was announced on the website that actually if you want to take the certified resistance welding technician exam, it's free for the first 2 beta groups. So if you know anybody that's in resistant welding that wants to get certified, it's been announced. The radiographic interpreter, that is something that you guys, if you have the equipment, so they can, I don't know if it requires equipment or not, the interpreter, I know the PT and MT requires equipment, but the interpreter, you guys can provide training for that. And then the MT-PT endorsement is going to require the same thing as robotic. You need to be considered an accredited training center. So anything, accredited training facilities just for welders, and everything else that we might accredit a center to do for certification will be under the ATC name. So you might be an ATF and an ATC under AWS. And if you get your CENTS, in the future we're going to have ATP for CENTS accredited training program. So we'll kill you with acronyms and brand endorsements. Capture success stories. This is something we want. We want to hear about the great work you're doing with the industry. I'd love to get another article about what Calumet's done with training 5,000 welders to help mobilize a workforce to build a plant expansion. It's great, and especially I tell you, the government would like to hear how you're saving jobs, or saving helping people saving companies money by training their workforce and helping them get through that learning curve faster, and being competitive in the market. So, just going to quickly go through. I could have brought in an actual SWPS and walked you through the whole thing, but I just want to talk about what do we have SWPSs for. So where you find these things, if you met Mike from WEX, if you go to AWS and you click on the bookstore, soon it'll take you over to WEX's website, and on the top key you'll see procedures. And you click on procedures and you'll see all 64 of them. So we got sheet carbon steel with different processes. Short circuit, TIG, stick. Sheet galvanized steel, same processes. Sheet carbon to stainless steel.
Dennis,
Yes, sir?
you gave out these catalogs.
Oh, it's in there too, isn't it?
26 and 27.
That's right. It's in the publication catalog. It's in your booklet. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much. Aluminum sheet. And then plate. This is what the iron workers use a lot of. You got the carbon steel plate with different processes, different thickness ranges. Self-shielded. Of course, if you're an iron worker, you want to be teaching self-shielded flux core if you want to put people in the Iron Workers Union. When I was out there, they challenged me to weld with it. They didn't think I knew how to weld, so I did show them I can still weld. It was good. And then carbon steel, more carbon steel. Got combination procedures, TIG and stick, and flux core gas, and self-shielded. But again, these are commonly used procedures every day. You don't need to requalify these. And as an ATF, this is a complete library that you can offer certifications for and meet a lot of industry's needs. All that company needs to do is buy a copy of this to be legally, or copyrighted. So all we ask a company to do is just buy the SWPS. They can buy the whole library for a pretty reasonable amount, but then they can use these for all the D codes. And then for ASME, there's 32 coming up on pipe. So that's the end of the plate. We got stainless steel plate. And then we got our first, I think there was 2, I must have missed one. There's 2 now for Navy that's been added. Well, actually, these are both Navy, carbon steel plate and carbon steel pipe. These are the first 2 Navy SWPSs for suppliers to naval yards or naval shipbuilders. And then you get into pipe. Now, these have all been approved by ASME, but there's hooks in it. Like Renee said, when you do your qualification, it has to be witnessed. And they don't allow for transferable certifications yet. However, I'm starting to push a code case. Maybe in the future we'll get that changed. Well, they'll allow centralized welder qualification and transference with improved welding management. We'll see. So there's a lot of procedures out there. Carbon steel pipe, more different combination procedures, stick, TIG stick combinations, consumable inserts. So. Spray transfer, carbon to stainless, commonly used, transitions when you go from reheaters, the superheaters, or different things within boilers. You get these transition joints. Stainless steel. Chrome moly, again, power plant type applications, high temperature. Commonly used, stick, TIG, combination procedures, consumable insert. More chrome moly, I think that's a different class, that's P4, P5. So, as I kind of look at, I've actually been working with the B2 committee on, how to, and this is an eye chart, so again, you have to look at it, but basically, if I'm an ATF and I want to qualify procedures and I want to register them because I want to take advantage of, promoting transferable certifications, how do I really register my WPS that I developed working with a welding engineer? And so I kind of come up with this notion of an enterprise WPS. This hasn't been formally adopted, but they like the concept, the committee does. But the whole idea is that you would work with the supplier, and again, sometimes they want to keep this as IP, and they would, it'd be confidential, but if they really want to be able to register this and have a regional workforce created in the area that would have this certification so that they can pull people, as they, schools can train and offer this as part of their normal certifications. The process would be you would develop a procedure and you would qualify that procedure. You do a PQR. And this is it's an eye chart. So it says ATF or client develops WPS for application, and you prepares WPS for client qualification, and you do the qualification at the client site. If it meets requirements, you register it with headquarters as a potential enterprise WPS that you want to share with other people, would be the idea. And then you can take that procedure and you can sell it to client B or client C. And if we get enough, but the issue is why it's an enterprise WPS, it's not an SWPS. Every client that uses it has to actually perform a procedure qualification with that. So they have to do bends and tensils. And that's how we actually get an SWPS. Once we got sufficient confidence, the procedure that you developed and are now sharing with other clients has consistent, good properties, we can take it to the committee to make it an SWPS. But this is kind of the vision that we don't want to limit business opportunities for ATFs. But I really recommend, though, if you get into this, that you have a welding engineer partner. If you're not a welding engineer, so you make sure that you meet all the code requirements. And then this is getting towards the end of my presentation. We are investing mega money in our IT system. So in the future, we hope to have relational capabilities between our learning management system for AWS Learning and our Sense management system and our ATF. We want to develop an enterprise system and our national registry for welders, our committee management system. We're developing some career management tools and our professional registry for CWIs and engineers, supervisors, etc. So this is where we're going. It's going to take a couple years. Phase 1's coming out late this year. We're going to have a new website coming out. And we're going to have a new membership database, so hopefully you'll find those tools easier to use, and then we'll have more tools to follow. So a lot of it's common sense, but some of the thoughts I put down, again, we're going to have a workshop tomorrow, so maybe we can come up with other ideas to share or best practices or initiatives to work on. And that just kind of highlights the things that we offer today. So any questions?